What is it, magical people? It's the Mystic here. Since Blade is the newest hero to be added in Season 3.5 of Marvel Rivals, in today's video we're going to be discussing the most effective ways you can counter his impressive kit. By the end of today's video, you should know a few different ways to shut down his kit and what characters from each class of heroes will best counter him. You see, Blade's kit is designed around creating offensive pressure on the front line, meaning he's most likely going to be a brawler character who's intended to engage with Vanguards and other frontline duelists. Now, this doesn't necessarily mean he won't be an effective dive character, because he probably will be, but his kit seems to be tailored around survivability and cutting off access to healing. With abilities like Daywalker Dash, where he dashes forward and either does a sword combo or shoots a shotgun depending on which you have equipped, or his Bloodline Awakening ability, which enhances his attack speed, while applying a lifesteal ability that lets him absorb health from whoever he attacks, and his Scarlet Shroud ability that lets him parry and gives him a damage resistance buff with every successful parry. Not to mention his ultimate attack, 1000-fold Slash, where he charges forward quite a distance, creating a slash zone that damages enemies and gives them a healing reduction debuff. And since it seems like he's meant to be on the front line, we're going to start off by looking at what Vanguard characters will act as good counters for him. First, I'm thinking that Hulk is going to be a good counter for a few reasons. First, Hulk's bubble shield is a good way of protecting himself and other frontline characters from damage, which will probably come in handy when thinking about the healing reduction that Blade applies. This can also be a good way to temporarily prevent him from taking advantage of his lifesteal ability. Additionally, Hulk's exile ability is good to temporarily freeze him, which can set up some good opportunities for ranged characters and frontline characters to pick him off. In a similar vein, Emma Frost will also likely be a good counter due to her shield and being able to command grab and knock Blade backwards with her diamond form. Also, Blade and Emma have similar ranges of effectiveness, right? Meaning that a good Emma Frost player can reliably utilize most of her kit offensively against Blade. And lastly, I think one of the best Vanguard character options against Blade might just end up being Penny, whose entire kit revolves around setting up traps for enemies that get too close. Things like her spider nests and her spider mines create a playing field that will be tricky for Blade to navigate around without receiving damage. She also has a ranged primary attack that doesn't need to be reloaded, so she can continuously create a damage stream against Blade while denying him any chance to get close. Not only that, but like Hulk, she too has her cyber web snare ability that can stun Blade, leaving him open to attack. So if you're in a match playing against Blade and the Blade is going crazy and you need a good way to counter, I think having a Penny as a Vanguard character is definitely a good start when looking at countering him. But now that we've taken a look at the frontline Vanguard characters that I think will be good against Blade, let's take a look at what Duelist characters will potentially give Blade a hard time. So Blade suffers from similar disadvantages that most brawler melee Duelist characters have, which is being vulnerable to most flyer, poke, and range characters. Blade has no direct counters in his kit against any flying characters aside from maybe his ultimate attack, which, you know, is an ultimate attack, so it's not something that he could spam, it's not something that has a quick cooldown per se. But this also means that any poke and projectile hit scan characters like Hela or Phoenix are going to be good here. And I would also say that most of the Duelist roster that tends to be projectile or hit scan is going to be pretty good against Blade. So I think as long as you have good aim and you can apply constant pressure to him, he's going to be fairly easy to counter here. And because he relies on being out in the open on the front line, characters like Hawkeye, Black Widow, Namor, Moon Knight, etc. will all be decent picks against Blade. So I think that Squirrel Girl is going to be another good Duelist character against Blade, specifically because of her Squirrel blockage ability. This allows her to stun one foe for up to 1.5 seconds. So much like the other Vanguard characters with similar abilities, this can be a good way to lock down Blade and secure KO against him. And because I could see most Duelists being effective in countering Blade, I think it's easier to list some characters that I don't think would be the best counters. Now, these aren't terrible counters, but I don't really see them giving you a unique advantage against Blade, and that'd be other brawler characters like Magic, Iron Fist, and to a lesser degree Mr. Fantastic. But finally, we're going to be looking at some of the support characters that I think are going to be effective against Blade, starting of course with Ultron. Ultron gets the same benefits that other flyers in the roster get, meaning he's able to deal damage to Blade while remaining outside of his effective range. I also think that Ultron's Imperative Patch and Imperative Firewall abilities are going to be good passive abilities to use on ally Vanguards that might help mitigate some of Blade's passive debuffs. I also think a character like Loki is going to be a good support on the team to counter Blade, because he can use his clones to either attack Blade or heal allies from a safe distance outside of Blade's effective range. He could also do something like lay down his healing lamps for the Vanguards and then shift over to a clone much further back. And then his ultimate lets him copy other ults and movesets from different characters who are more effective against Blade, so that could definitely come in handy. I also think Luna Snow and Mantis with their freeze and sleep abilities respectively are going to be a good counter against Blade diving them. Even like Luna Snow's ultimate is going to be a good presence to have near the front line, because she could heal up the Vanguards if need be or give them an attack boost, which could go a long way in shutting down Blade's kit. I also want to give an honorable mention to Rocket, who can deal damage from a safe distance, escape fairly easily, and mitigate Blade's heal reduction debuff with his Amplifier ult. Cloak and Dagger's ultimate is also probably going to be pretty good, but I just don't see any of Cloak and Dagger's other moves in their moveset being pretty specifically useful against Blade. I mean, generally they're useful, but I don't know that they're specifically going to be good against counter. But in conclusion, when it comes to countering Blade, I think that there's going to be different routes that you can take depending on the role. For Vanguards, being able to shield yourself and your allies and restrict Blade's movement is going to be key. For Duelists, there are going to be many ranged options that can stay out of Blade's effective range, with some Duelists also being able to stun him. And for supports, Ultron's going to be a good addition in mitigating some of Blade's passive abilities, and other supports like Luna or Mantis can stun him, and Loki can create damage streams from a distance and copy the ability of anyone else in the roster. So I think all these characters that I mentioned are good to keep in mind when you're having trouble with a Blade on the enemy team. But with that, we've reached the end of today's video. If you liked it, be sure to hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe. I'm the Mystic, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.
After he yawns, another comes to my Glentor. To me, my queen in black.
Is coming, and time will spiral into darkness.
I'll fight to end the darkness that spawned me. Slice and dice. Silver bullet. Is on. What a hand. Judgment's coming. Still got an edge. 1,000 gods! Bury the light.